Instead of leaning into the striving and the strategy of doing, lean into creating a sense of safety within yourself and building a strong sense of trust with yourself that no matter what happens, if I stand up in front of that room and I embarrass myself, or if I ask to go to a different location and this person decides that they don't want to go on a date with me, like any of those things, this worst case scenario of what I think is going to happen, can I be trustworthy enough with myself that I can manage my experience of those emotions on the back end? Welcome to Another Way Through, a podcast featuring stories of folks who used to trade their authenticity for safety and acceptance and have found their way to lives filled with greater peace, joy, and freedom. These stories will remind you and affirm for you that if you're thinking of following that inner voice telling you that there's something bigger out there for you, even if it's a little bit scary, that there's another way through for you too. Let's get into the episode. Welcome back, folks. Today we are talking about perfectionism and overcoming perfectionism. And I am definitely a always in progress recovering perfectionist. And I've been thinking a lot about this because most of my clients that come to me have some form of perfectionism. A lot of my friends have this. This is something that I think plagues a lot of us who have been high achievers, have been rewarded for doing well, doing things in a way that's really rewarded and celebrated by other people of like, oh, you're so good at that, or you're always so reliable, or you're the person that everyone kind of goes to and expects things from. And so that's kind of become part of your identity, and it's really hard for you to let that go. And I realized as I was starting my journey as an entrepreneur and really putting myself out there in this new way on social media and things like that, one of my first coaches that was helping me on how to show up online was really helping me discover like what are the barriers that I'm putting against myself, and they were really really freaking high. And she was like, okay, well, what do you think is going to happen if you post that thing? I had this idea in my head that what I posted or what I put out there had to be this original, never before seen or heard of idea that was so well thought out that it would like change people's minds or blow people's minds at every time I posted anything. And she was like, well, what do you think is going to happen if it's not that? Because, that's a pretty high bar. And my thought was, my initial just real honest response was, for me, I'm just going to like die alone is really what I thought. And she's like, that's a little harsh for one post on Instagram, right? And so this idea that I was really trying to show up in a way that was perfect and as pretty as possible and palatable as possible for everybody, and really obviously that really waters yourself down. You can't actually possibly show up in a way where everyone's going to like it or everyone's going to accept it. I often think about people out there that are like so talented and so famous and so amazing, and it's like they still have people that'll say like, people still say Beyonce can't sing. People still say like anything about these people that have millions and millions and millions of followers. So who do I think I am that I'm going to have it so that nobody will ever dislike what I'm doing or think that what I have to say like doesn't make sense or she's a little weird? Like somebody's going to think that. And if I'm going to be able to show up in a way where I find my people, the people that actually love me and really want to hear what I have to say, I'm going to have to get over the fact that some people are not going to like me. There's always that meme that goes around. It's like, you want everybody to like you. You don't even like everybody, right? I know that there are people out there that just don't sit right with me or rub me the wrong way, but I don't wish any harm on them. I just like go about my day, and I hope that I can get to a point, and I'm working through getting to a point where people can just, if they don't like what I have to say, or if there's something that they, doesn't quite sit right with them, then they could just keep it moving. And if they do have anything that's really, I think a lot of us, we worry that if we put ourselves out there in this way and we get this like big following, we're going to have haters, we're going to have trolls, we're going to have people that really come for us. And it's like, we can just let them think what they want to think. We can allow them to just have those thoughts and just say, you know what, that's an interesting thought. That's an interesting perspective, but it doesn't rule what I believe to be true about myself, or it doesn't change what I think my own worthiness is. I've just been really sitting with this idea that my worthiness is not measured by what other people think or what they have to say or getting them to change their minds or getting them to like really love what I have to say. It's just my worthiness was baked in when I came to this planet, when I was delivered here from the divine. And that's really what I wanted to talk today about, because we talk a lot about perfectionism, but in doing some research for this episode, I really looked up like what are some of the definitions of these words, because I think we make words mean things and we make these big ideas in our heads, but sometimes really good to get back to basics of like what does this even mean. And so when you look up the word perfection or perfect, first you see things like without faults, without, any flaws, right? And that's, I think, what we think of. And then when you look a little further, the next definition is complete and whole. And I really want to double down on that definition of perfection, because when you think about, again, we come here from the divine, like it's a miracle that any of us are even here. Like we know how it works. We don't fully know how we all get to this planet, and that we come to this world full of light. We come as babies, like perfect little beings. And if you look at a baby, I think I love babies, but you look at a baby, like they are deserving of everything they could possibly want and need. And babies actually come to this planet knowing that as well. They come and they just scream. They have no other way of communicating than just screaming to get their needs met. And they will do that until, it's like, nope, it's not my diaper. Nope, it's not my, I'm not hungry. It's something else. I just want to be cuddled, whatever it might be. But babies know that they are deserving of having their needs met. And over time, we pick up these messages from lots of different places, from our caregivers, from society, from the bullies in middle school, whatever it may be, that we are not actually perfect. We are not actually whole and deserving. And then I'm speaking for myself, we pick up these coping mechanisms that are, how can I show up in a way where I prove to other people that I am deserving, that I prove to other people that I'm worth caring for, I'm worth like being around. And so I'm only going to show the parts of myself that are acceptable, that are seen as cool or desirable. And then that becomes my identity. That becomes who I think I have to be all the time. And then I'm constantly striving to only show those parts of myself and never show any sort of faults or any sort of mistake or any sort of doubts or anything where I'm insecure. I keep those as close to the chest as possible. And so that's when I always want to come back to this idea of we are whole, we are perfect when we are born, and we're always just trying to remember that and get back to that and shed and let go of the programming that we pick up that blocks us from seeing the truth. And so when we talk about wholeness and being complete, I think we forget that as humans, we were given this full range of human emotions that we are capable of experiencing, everything from joy and laughter and happiness and peace to grief and sorrow and sadness. And our society tells us that certain emotions are good and others are negative or bad emotions, and we shouldn't feel those. And anxiety is wrong and anxiety is bad and all of those things. When in reality, as humans, we are meant to experience that full range of emotions, and that if we are unable to, and we're numbing ourselves from experiencing what we consider to be negative emotions or challenging emotions or bad emotions, we're also numbing our ability and our capacity to hold these really beautiful emotions like joy and happiness and freedom that we actually say that we desire. And our capacity to hold it kind of goes both directions. So if we numb out over here, we're numbing out over here as well, or we're really working from a place of like we are maybe getting a touch of joy or getting a touch of happiness, but we're so afraid that the other shoe is going to drop, that it might not last, that we kind of do things. That's when things like self-sabotage come in. We're so afraid of experiencing those negative emotions that we kind of try to protect ourselves from fully experiencing and living in the joy and the freedom by, preventing ourselves from fully experiencing that by like shutting ourselves down, saying, oh, I don't really want to go after that, or I'm not really into the apps, I don't want to date, or I'm not really into putting myself out there in that way because I'm so afraid that someone might reject me that I'm ruling out the possibility that someone could really, really see me and really love me. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about what are some of what I would call the antidotes to perfectionism, some of the things that you can try in your day-to-day, or what I have really experienced as helping me continue to recover from perfectionism and holding myself to this impossible standard that really no human can experience. Right? We need to come back to this idea that we actually are perfect already. And perfectionism, like any of the other isms, right, is a maladaptive idea that we have, that we need to strive to be something that we're not, that we need to strive to be something else that will allow us to feel safe and feel forever free and okay, when that like okayness, that feeling of peace, it exists within us. It exists within our ability to accept ourselves for who we truly are, and accept every aspect of ourselves, and use our discernment to connect with people that also see us for who we are, as opposed to consistently trying to be something that we're not and get people to accept us for that. And then when you're showing up not as your true self in an inauthentic way, and you're experiencing being accepted for that, that will never feel like true love, because you're abandoning yourself to get it. You have to pretend to be something that you're not to experience those good feelings, and so you can never fully let them soak in, because you experience this idea of like, well, I have to be this other thing in order to keep experiencing this acceptance, in order to keep experiencing this connection with this person or this environment or this group. And by abandoning yourself in that way, you're not actually allowing yourself to fully experience the joy and the acceptance that you desire. And so that leads me to my first, I'd say, antidote to perfectionism. It's maybe one of the scariest, but it is actually allowing yourself to be seen for your fullness, for your quirks, or the things about you that are the things that you would have traditionally hidden from people, hidden from others, because you thought maybe they wouldn't like it. And I'll give you an example. I wouldn't say this is necessarily something that you just rip the Band-Aid off and you do with everyone, especially if you're really recovering from really only showing up in a particular way in the past. But for me, I've experienced that at this point in my life, being in a loving relationship for probably the first time in a real true sense as an adult, that by being my silly self or my quirky self, or standing up for myself and asking for what I need, that has allowed me to experience a level of depth of connection that I never experienced before. So this is just like a funny random thing about early on in my relationship. Was on our first date, and this is what came to me, so this is the example we're getting today. So on our first date, my partner, now partner, suggested, first he said, okay, what don't you eat? Is there anything that you don't eat? And I'm thinking like, okay, I live in LA. A lot of people have dietary restrictions, or vegan or gluten-free or different things. I'm like, I eat everything. I will eat whatever. And so he comes back to me saying, okay, how about I was wanting to check out this new ramen spot. Would you like to go there? And it's funny because it hit me immediately that I'm like, damn, I was like, okay, do I have any dietary restrictions? No, but there are lots of things that I don't love to eat. I wouldn't say that. There's a few things that I don't love to eat, and that was one of them. And I didn't think to say, okay, here's the list of things that I don't like. I just thought that like it would probably be safe. One, I joke with him now, like ramen on a first date is a bold move, but regardless, I thought to myself, like in the past, I would have just been like, you know what, I'm a go with the flow. I'm a cool girl. You took the trouble of finding and researching the place. Go ahead and let's just do that. I'm sure I'll find something on the menu. And I was in this new season of like, I'm going to be as authentic to myself and as true to myself as possible. And I said, you know what, I really appreciate it. You did ask, but I actually don't like ramen. And so how about these other couple of places? And it's a very small example. It sounds like a very like silly, mundane example. But for me, that was a really big step to actually say, I don't actually desire that. I don't really want that. And on our, literally our first interaction, it was really important that I set that precedent for myself, that it's not that I am, and there's nothing wrong with like, we're not going to get into this on this podcast, but nothing wrong with being like high maintenance, but I wasn't coming off as like, absolutely not. You can't, try again, like come up with something better. I was just like, I was appreciative that he took the effort to ask me and find something, but that it just wasn't the right thing for me. And so I met him in the middle and suggested a couple of places nearby, and we had a wonderful date. The rest is history, all that. But we often talk about, he's like, well, it would have been so weird if you were like, oh yeah, we'll just find something on the menu and we get there and we're on the date and you like clearly don't like ramen. It would have just been really odd. And he's like, yeah, I'm really glad that you spoke up for yourself in that way and shared that thing. And obviously that is a very like minor example of what has grown to be a much bigger pattern of me feeling really comfortable to show up as myself, me feeling really comfortable to ask for what I need, even if it might slightly inconvenience or majorly inconvenience someone, right? And especially this person I love. I don't want to inconvenience people that I love. I've learned to not desire to do that. And it is the road to having deep connection, is not just inconveniencing someone, but actually speaking your truth, speaking up and saying what it is that you desire and what it is that you require. And if they can meet you, great. If they can't, then that's okay too. You can work to manage your emotions, and if it's someone that you really want to remain in connection with and they want to remain in connection with you, you'll figure it out, right? But I think so many of us, this is the sort of intersection between perfectionism and people pleasing, right? But it's a lot of, I'm going to show these parts of myself that are desirable and acceptable and hope that maintains the connection, when if I'm cutting myself off from the truth of myself, then I'm not maintaining that connection with myself, and I will never feel that connection with you if that's what you require for you to stick around. And so that is one example of how we can show up in our fullness and just actually show even just smaller parts, that things that you wouldn't normally reveal to someone, with people that you have used your intuition and discernment to know this person is deserving of my time. This person is a good spirit and soul, and I feel that. And then test it out. It doesn't have to be, hey, let me share all of my deepest, darkest secrets, or reveal all of my truths to you. That, you also have to realize that some people aren't deserving of that part of you quite yet, but there's little ways that you can start to test, and I don't want to say test in that way, but test out for yourself. Is it safe for me? Do I feel comfortable like saying this thing or asking for this or sharing this aspect of myself, and just seeing what their reaction is? And not to say, okay, I'm testing to see, did they react the way I needed them? Are they a good person? But if they react, strongly in a positive way, great. If they react strongly in a negative way, then you have that information and you can decide what to do accordingly, right? You can always have further conversations with that person and decide, hey, how do we move through this? It's really important to me that I'm able to express to you what kind of food I like to eat. And if you have a strong reaction, then this isn't going to work. And then you can see how they respond, right? The ramen example, I'm going to leave it at this point. But there's so many ways that, this has shown up with friendships or with, the rest of my relationship. But like, for example, some of my friends, it's like, I don't desire to go out and drink the way I used to, or go out and party the way I used to, right? At this age, I've done it. I've done all of it. And I desire deeper connection, one-on-one connection, or let's sit and have a conversation, or let's go to a spa, or let's, go sit in the park and do something. It doesn't have to be, extravagant. And so I realized that for certain people, it's like their default might be that they want to go out, but if it's truly about connecting with me, that me saying, hey, I'd actually really prefer if we do this other thing. Are you open to that? That they're happy to do it as well. They're like it's just as desirable for them as the thing that they would have typically done. But if I would have just not spoken up, then I would be either doing something that I don't really desire and not really super fun for me, and that's the way we're connecting, and that's not going to feel good for either one of us. So this first tip, this first idea is to show people just a little bit more, reveal a little bit more of yourself, and the right people will show up for you in the way that you need. The second, with overcoming perfectionism is really about becoming a beginner again. And when at some point, I don't know, in middle school, high school, probably in college, we stop allowing ourselves, or at least I'll speak for myself, stop allowing myself to do certain things that I wasn't already an expert level at. I love to dance, for example, and I danced and performed all throughout childhood, high school, even college, not in a particularly professional way, but just as a fun activity that I got to do. A lot of my friends from college were from a Latin hip hop dance troupe. We didn't have to try out. We just did it and we performed throughout college. And it was such a fun way to express myself creatively and to connect with people in a really cool way. But I realized that when I become an adult, when I, was living in New York City, it's like there are no opportunities to perform unless you are a professional at something. And so my ability to dance in that way and to spend as much time moving my body in the way that felt really, really good, it kind of just went away. And what I realize now is that there are so many things that I can do that I just get to just do simply because they're fun for me or because I like doing it, not because I'm the best at it or because I'm a professional or because I'm showing anybody, but just because it's something that I want to do. And so earlier this year, one of the things that is really, really important for me to continue to strive to do, I'm doing it here on this podcast, is continuing to practice speaking, using my voice, sharing my voice with the world, and not doing it in only the way that is like perfect and is so buttoned up. And I have this whole script memorized and I'm standing up in front of people and having this like perfectly delivered speech. It is just using my voice and expressing myself in ways and getting better and better and better at it and doing so authentically and with ease. And so one of the things that I knew would help me at an intuition that would be really helpful and supportive was improv. It was something that I'd been drawn to. I went to business school. At this point, I graduated like 7-8 years ago. And during that, there was opportunities to do that. There was improv club, there was improv class, and I was terrified. I was like, there's no way. I can never stand up in front of a group of people and have no idea what I'm about to say and just share it and, hope that they laugh and potentially make a fool of myself, potentially fall flat on my face. And I was like, no, I'm just too scared. And I went to their performances and I saw them and I'm like, wow, that is so cool. These people, they're so cool. How could they do that? And it's something that I think I talked to a friend about it maybe 2 years ago, and shout out to this friend, really, really helpful, would follow up with me and say like, hey, did you sign up for that improv class? And I was like, no, I'm still researching it. And so finally this year I was like, this is the year I'm going to do it. I wrote it down as one of my goals. And so earlier this year I took an improv class that, at first I was like, okay, this is cool. It's just a small group of people, not super serious. I was at a community college here and we just had fun with it. And it was lighthearted. I felt like I was able to tap into that silly side of myself and show that. And again, improv, it's like there's no plan. You have no idea what you're going to say. You show up, you stand up with another person that's in your scene. Someone initiates. It may be you, it may be them, and you have no idea what they're going to say. So there's no planning. There is no preparing. You just have to be present in the moment and actually express yourself and respond. And you have to be present enough to actually respond to what they're giving you and not just just deny it and go your own direction, right? Like that's when it completely falls apart. And so getting practice at just showing up and being myself and responding in the moment, some things being like extremely funny, some things being horrible and boring, and all of that is okay, right? So for me, improv was something that I was really, really terrified to do, but I decided to do it and I found it to be so, so fun. And then I was like, all right, cool. We did it. It was 5 weeks. It was a great class and a great experience. And then the group decided to continue on and sign up for the advanced class, which meant at the end of that 5-week or 6-week period, there was actually going to be a performance. And I was like, oh my God. I was able to do it in front of, the closed classroom of, 10 of us or 8 of us in the classroom, and we're all doing the same thing for the first time as beginners. And it's another thing entirely to stand up in front of a room of strangers and perform it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to continue to challenge myself and continue to push myself to do things outside of my comfort zone, because that's the only way that I'm going to continue to grow. And so earlier this year, I completed that improv class and I did the performance. It was not some huge room of people. It was all of our, friends and family and loved ones that were in the audience of my fellow classmates and myself. And it was super fun. And it was just such a moment of, I can do things that are really scary. I can do things that are really challenging, and I didn't die, right? Like me standing up and saying something that was like not the funniest thing that anyone has ever heard in front of a group of 20 people. Like the lights are still on. We're all still here. Like everything is okay. And the more that you can just challenge yourself to show up as a beginner, because when you're a beginner, there's no way you can be perfect at something. When you're a beginner, you're automatically going to make mistakes. And if you do that and you realize, I didn't die, I didn't end up all alone, everything is not, out the window, all of my success and all the things that I've worked for goes out the window because I, made a mistake or did something silly in front of a group of people. Like that level of, you're just building your tolerance with being a little bit more, embarrassed or just, not perfect in front of other human beings. And then that's how they can get to know you. That's how you can connect with people. And I have some really great friends from that improv class now that we're still in touch, and it's a lot of fun. So the final tip or antidote to perfectionism that I want to offer is really allowing yourself to feel your feelings, being there for yourself. One of the things that I've really heard a lot lately in different forums, different coaching groups that I'm in, or different friends, this message has really been popping up, is when you are in the wobble, when you are feeling uneasy, you lean into strategy, you lean into doing, you lean into fixing yourself, right? And so that is what perfectionism is. It is a running from the fear of rejection and running from the fear of people are going to think I'm not that great. And you're just like, well, I'm going to just strive and strive and strive to be as perfect as possible. I'm going to keep doing, I'm going to keep working super hard. I'm going to keep tinkering away at this thing until it's perfect before I put it out there. And so that striving and that doing is in order for you to maintain a sense of safety and security, and to prevent yourself from feeling that embarrassment or rejection that you think is going to come when you show up in your not perfect, fully, your fully expressed self, where you just show up as your unfiltered self. It's like, oh no, people aren't going to like this. It's going to be really bad for me, right? And so you keep striving to perfect this image of yourself and only present that to the world. And so what I want to say is, instead of leaning into the striving and the strategy of doing, lean into creating a sense of safety within yourself and building a strong sense of trust with yourself that no matter what happens, if I stand up in front of that room and I embarrass myself, or if I ask to go to a different location and this person decides that they don't want to go on a date with me, like any of those things, this worst case scenario of what I think is going to happen, can I be trustworthy enough with myself that I can manage my experience of those emotions on the back end? So if I feel like I'm going to be super sad, how can I comfort myself through sadness? Like, how would you want to be comforted if you were sad? How would you want a dear friend to comfort you if you were sad? How would you want a loved one to comfort you if you were sad, or if you were embarrassed, or if you were feeling down about yourself? Can you create tools, practices, rituals for you to do that for yourself on a daily basis before it happens, right? Even before the worst case scenario thing happens. Oh, I fall flat on my face in front of a room of people at my improv performance. Like, I don't have to wait until then to build this level of trust with myself. I do it on a consistent daily basis. And that looks like your typical, what everyone will tell you to do because they work, is things like meditating, journaling, having a practice where you come back to yourself, where you get really, really present with yourself and your emotions, and you really tap into them and allow yourself to feel them, express them, and comfort yourself through them. So not I'm going to do probably a whole episode on just this, but there is a lot of talk, especially now, and I really, really love that we have a lot more exposure to psychology and personal growth and development, but oftentimes it can become this thing where we are reading about it, we're getting these dopamine hits by reading a post on Instagram and not actually doing the actual work and doing the practice. We think about and we analyze our feelings rather than feeling them. And our feelings are sensations in our bodies. Our emotions are messengers and energy that is flowing through us. And so often, and I find this with myself, with my clients, with friends, is that people want to skip to, well, here's what it means, and I should just be feeling this other thing, and I should be thinking about it in this way, or here's the lesson, and I'm above it, and she just needs to work on herself, and she's not working on herself, and I'm working on myself, right? Like we have this way of explaining away what's happening instead of being with the feeling in our body of what we're experiencing. So if I am sad because this person rejects me, or if I'm sad because the Instagram post doesn't get the kind of engagement I want to do, sometimes that means I can run to like, well, let me find a better strategy. Let me take this course on social media, or let me reach out to somebody and get them. Or I can just be with the fact that didn't feel great, that, well, no one liked my post, or the comments were not great, or whatever it may be. Can I be with those feelings inside my body? Can I listen to myself? And really, almost always, there are younger parts of ourselves that have felt that embarrassment, that have felt that sense of pain and rejection, that are trying to prevent us from ever experiencing it again. And that's the root of our perfectionism to begin with. And those parts, instead of just allowing them to rule the show and say like, yeah, go ahead, let's just do more, let's just work on that strategy a bit more, let's get the perfect plan, let's find another solution or another course or another person to help us with this. Can we just sit still and get quiet and listen to what that voice has to say? Like, hey, that felt really bad. Hey, that didn't feel so great, that person didn't like me, or that person didn't express what I would have wanted them to express, that they didn't want to go out on that date with me, or that they didn't want to be friends with me, or they didn't want to hang out with me, whatever it may be. Can you be with that part and say, hey, I love you. I want to go out on a date with you. I want to go hang out with you. I want to do whatever it is that you want to do, and I want to support you, and no matter what happens, I'm never going anywhere. I will never look away. I'm always going to be here for you. And that part that has this tendency to strive and to lean into perfectionism and doing and making things better by fixing yourself, that part really just needs for you to finally show up as the kind of adult that they need and say, hey, I hear you. I know that that's your typical way of doing things, but I'm here now. And I'm going to guide us, and I'm going to make sure that you and I are okay, and that no matter what happens, I've got your back, and we will figure this out together. So with that, I want to just invite you to allow yourself to be whole, and that perfectionism is striving to be something that you're not, when what you are is perfect and complete and whole. And God made us as humans that have the full range of human emotions, of human experiences. And you're not meant to only show up a certain way, only be this perfect image of yourself, and only experience rainbows and butterflies always. One, that would be really boring. And two, that just, you'd be a robot. You wouldn't be a human being. And so by allowing yourself to lean into the things that are a little bit scary, and to show up in the ways that are not what your coping mechanisms or the strategies that you've leaned into in the past to prevent yourself from feeling pain, that's not who you really are. That's not, maybe that's been your personality for a while now. But it's time, if you're here, if you're listening, it's because you're ready to make a shift, or ready to return to a greater sense of inner peace and wholeness within yourself. And so it's time to let go of those things that you have been holding on to for just a little bit too long. You've outgrown them, and start to come back to who you truly are, and know with practice and with exposure to that more and more over time that you will be okay. That you've got your own back, and that is enough. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. I'd love to see your thoughts and your comments down below. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at Tap Into Your Wellspring, and make sure you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So if perfectionism is still tripping you up and preventing you from going after some of the opportunities you truly desire, I invite you to book a free consultation call with me and learn more about what my coaching looks like and how it can support you to push past perfectionism for good.